Greetings, amigops, and top teners everywhere. Welcome back to another episode of Top 10 with Kyle and Mike. I am your co-host, Kyle. Opposite me today is your lovely co-host, Michael, and your very favorite guest, Mike's wonderful father, Jerry. This week, as we do every week, we have a top 10 list prepared. This week, it's Mike's list. He's put it together. I don't know what it is, but we have our favorite consultant on the show to lend his expertise. Between the three of us, we will debate vigorously until, by the end of this hopefully compact podcast, we will have arrived at a definitive top 10. Mike, what are we talking about?
All right, K-Dog. As you said, we're joined this evening by our hooded guest, Jerry. He's in Dementor garb this evening.
I feel like I'll never be cheerful again. What?
No. You know who we really need right now, actually? Since we're in a Prisoner of Azkaban mood, we need expositioning McExposition. It's like trying to catch smoke. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. No, we're joined by Jerry. So actually, in a slight twist to the guest format, he does not have the topic this evening. I do. Jerry does not know what the topic is, but we have brought him in as an expert because he is very well versed in this evening's topic. He knows what the hell he's talking about. We are going to be talking about Seinfeld this evening.
Oh boy.
So we are specifically going to be reprising the format we used on Parks and Rec. Because like Parks and Rec, Seinfeld is a show of wonderful secondary characters. We are going to be talking about the top 10 best, most memorable secondary Seinfeld characters.
This is going to be great. I just wish that I had seen... I'm not deep into Seinfeld like I am some other shows. I'm probably I can think of four or five Seinfeld experts in my life, and unfortunately I'm not one of them. I feel bad that Dylan and Cam aren't on this podcast.
I feel slightly bad, but I do think it's important to note for the listeners that we have fan number one sitting right next to me. Jerry and I spent a lot of my childhood watching the 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock 4-episode power block on TBS. And the best part about the power block that I always notice is that it's not in any sort of order. Like, Jerry's not dating girl A through those 4 episodes. He's got a different girlfriend in all 4. He's in 1992 in one, 1994 in the next, 98, 96. It's out of order. It's random. It's a really cool way to watch a show. And we watched basically between 30 minutes and, 120 minutes of Seinfeld a night for 10 years.
Yeah, and it repeated pretty often.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you would get, sometimes you'd see the same show every 3 months.
Something like that, probably.
Because it was such overexposure, but yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
Love the topic.
I think the cool thing about Seinfeld, too, about watching it that way, is that there's certain episodes that are real gems that you don't get a lot. Like, for some reason, I don't know, I'm sure there's no reason, it's just something that you think. There's certain episodes you feel like you've seen a bunch, and there's certain, like the Junior Mint, that you see very rarely, but when you catch the Junior Mint episode, it's just so exciting.
It's very refreshing.
It is very refreshing.
I feel like, too, for the marginal Seinfeld fans, the episodes that you're talking about, everybody knows them.
Yeah, I mean, even if they haven't seen them.
Yeah, they're just familiar with certain things that have made their way into the language and the I guess, what do we want to call it? The
pop culture lexicon.
Yeah, of the day.
The zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I think also for any listeners who are not Seinfeld fans, this will probably go over your head, but do yourself a damn favor and watch some Seinfeld, because this show, I love a lot of TV. There's no show that I feel as passionate about as I do about Seinfeld. It's probably partially because it reminds me of growing up, and it reminds me of spending time with my parents, because my mom is also a big Seinfeld fan, must be noted. But it holds up. Some of the scenarios that they put the characters in are not relevant to today's world, like trying to catch a movie together. It doesn't exactly work because we have cell phones, but the basic idea of trying to make plans with friends and it not working out, that holds up. The exact mechanics of it, a little different, but the way that this show thinks about, life is still very relevant and hilarious.
Michael and I were talking earlier about how the Ringer podcast talks about what plays well today and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what from a movie, from whatever is okay, acceptable, and what now seems so offensive. And one of the things that I think I always enjoyed about Seinfeld is that there's a certain selfishness to all of the characters.
Yes.
But they're never mean. So in that sort of way, I feel like you could watch the show 20 years from now and it would still be funny because, you know, the situation might change, but they'd still be dealing with the basic issues of friendships and obligation and all that stuff. Can I just interrupt for 1 second and say congratulations to you guys? I know I was listening to the cast the other day and it's over a year, and that's pretty amazing that you guys have stuck with it. And as a fan and interested party, the show just keeps getting better and better, and congratulations. You're developing skills, and it's really fun as a listener. Wish I could be on more, but we don't have to get into that right now. I'd like to be part of the success. That's really what this is about. I want to someday be able to tell my grandkids that, you know, I remember when, and I had a large role in the development of it. So unless you have me on more, you'll rob me of that. But anyway, congratulations. You guys are awesome. You.
Well, thanks, Jerry. That means a lot. Or someone whose opinion I respect quite a bit. So to know that you're an avid fan and you like the podcast means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Does mean a lot.
Nice work, man.
All right, boys. We ready to roll into this?
Yeah. So my question is,
yes,
there are obviously 4 main characters in Seinfeld, and then I can think of a small number of recurring characters that I might not consider major, but aren't minor. I guess the number of major characters on Seinfeld are small enough that can we maybe just define them up front?
Anybody but the 4.
Okay.
So this is a list of anybody but the 4, because even the characters who appear a lot on this show don't appear anywhere near as often as the main characters. So I actually, one of the things we're going to talk about is the number of episodes these characters appear in.
Ooh.
So I think that the show broadcasts like 200 episodes, something like that. And the closest number of appearances to the main 4 characters is one character who appeared in 100 episodes. It's the woman who sits behind the cash register at Monk's Diner. And I did not include her for consideration because she only talks a couple times. She's actually funny when she does. But other than that, the next closest number of episodes is 45. So the drop off is steep.
Do any of the 4 major characters not appear in any episode?
I would have to look again. I think that there may be an episode without Elaine. She goes on a fake trip because she was pregnant.
The very first season, I don't think she's in all of them, right? Because they break up and like...
Yeah, but that's also possible. I'd have to look, but it's pretty darn close to those 4 every episode, and that's really the only constant, which is part of why the random characters are so fun.
Awesome. Let's do it. What's number 10? Who's number 10?
Number 10 is actually a group of people. It's the Mandelbaums. So the Mandelbaums are a family of very comically old men who live down in Florida near the Seinfelds, near Jerry's parents. So Jerry ends up in these increasingly ridiculous situations where he's being trained by this old guy named Izzy Mandelbaum, who's played by, it's not Charlton Heston. It's some crazy old actor who really should have been dead by then. And Jerry's training with this guy, and he keeps calling Jerry Butterbean and String Bean, and he's telling him how out of shape he is. And he keeps saying it's go time.
Clear from a quick Google that is his catchphrase.
Yes, he says it's go time. So anytime Jerry disappoints him with his physical fitness, he says it's go time. Eventually he throws his back out. Jerry then meets this other old guy who he assumes is Izzy's friend, but it's actually his son, who's also really old. Then he meets another guy who's also really old after he gets in a situation with that son and he gets hurt too. And this guy is actually Izzy's dad, and the youngest old guy's grandfather. So he meets all these Mandelbaums who are always trying to pick stuff up that they can't pick up. They're getting in all kinds of mischief. One of the episodes ends with Izzy dragging Jerry behind his car because he wants Jerry to run while tethered to the car, and he's dragging him and he's bouncing off the ground. It's fantastic.
It is. It's one of the Bridges. I forget. It's Jeff Bridges'
Yes,
dad. I forget his
Lloyd
name.
Bridges.
Lloyd Bridges.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's fun.
They're funny to me, I guess, for a whole lot of reasons, but one of the reasons I enjoy them so much is, in a weird sort of way, it reminds me of a dynamic when my dad, Michael, and I are together, because you have a grandfather, a father, and we're not as close in age as, these guys are, but oh my God, the competition. To me, it strikes a chord because my dad is 80 years old. Michael's known him for his 25 years. Mm-hmm. So since he's in his mid-50s, no matter what you're doing, he's stronger than you. Always. He can work harder than you. Whatever it is, you're weak. And I think that's, for me, one of the things that makes him so endearing is I can't help but project our situation into theirs, and it makes me smile.
Yeah, I can see the three of us one day being the Mandelbaums.
I think we might be already just too young.
You guys are certainly fit enough.
No, it's not about the fitness. It's about the competition is the big thing. And the Mandelbaums are nuts. But long story short, Jerry ends up visiting all three of them in the hospital. And they're all three in beds and they're chanting, Mandelbaum, Mandelbaum, Mandel, because they're so proud of themselves. They only appear in 2 episodes.
Wow.
Yes, 2 episodes. Their impact is felt very strongly. The sort of stunt appearance of Lloyd Bridges is big, but the catchphrase is "It's go time," and the Mandelbaum chant is just it's classic.
And Butterbean.
Yes, calling him Butterbean is great.
Because Seinfeld is fit. I mean, he's soft.
Yeah, but he's in good shape.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
He's just soft, and they're going to man him up, which is kind of funny.
I like it.
All right, so that's the Mandelbaums. So we're doing a quick 2-person little streak here of characters who only appeared in very few episodes. The next is a character who appeared in only 1 episode, but it was such a notable appearance that he deserves a place on this list, and that is Alton Bennis, aka Elaine's dad. So the actor who played Elaine's dad only appears on the show 1 time. He's mentioned sort of like in passing because Elaine's father is a famous writer, is the backstory. So he's mentioned a few times. She's in the publishing industry, so he sort of comes up from time to time, but he only appears once. The reason he only appears once on this show is because the actor who played him, and I didn't know this full story until recently, he stole a butcher's knife from the butcher block in Jerry's fake apartment, which I think must have inspired the Kramer stealing the nuts storyline later.
Yeah.
So he steals a butcher knife. Somebody in the crew kind of calls him on it, and he starts holding it over his head and pretending to reenact the Psycho scene on Jerry. And this is a real butcher knife.
Oh, jeez.
The guy was so nuts that they never invited him back because they couldn't handle having this guy on the show. But he's in one of the funniest episodes of all time, which is that he's coming to town and Elaine has to get dinner with him, but she doesn't like spending time with him because he's nuts. And so she invites George and Jerry, and she's late. And so the two of them end up sitting in this hotel bar just waiting with him for like an hour. And he's telling them stories about Korea. He asks Jerry what he does. He says he's a comedian. He goes, "Oh, funny man. We had one of those in Korea. Tail gunner. Got his brains blown out over the Pacific. Nothing funny about that."
He's terrifying. And it's funny to know the backstory because he's terrifying to Seinfeld and Costanza. But in real life, he's terrifying. It makes you wonder how much
did they even write this, or did this guy just freak them out?
Yeah, I don't know. It sure feels like.
Yeah.
He's like a what you would imagine a drill sergeant, like a highly accomplished, I don't know, 4-star general who happens to be training recruits. He's just got an edge to him in his voice, and he's great. He's really great.
So the actor's name is Lawrence Tierney, and for someone else's point of reference, he is I can't remember his character's name, but he's the ringleader, like the guy that organizes the whole heist in Reservoir Dogs. What do you mean you don't tip that guy?
He is?
Which like to me, that's exactly what he seems like this mob boss who kind of knows a bunch of seedy characters and has a lot of fingers in a bunch of different pies. It's he's a scary actor, and it seems like he's a scary person too.
Oh, he was nuts. And so, just like the scenario just keeps ramping up and he keeps scaring them. Jerry has just gotten a new suede jacket and it starts to snow outside and they're going to go walk out. So Jerry doesn't want to ruin his jacket, so he turns it inside out, but it has this pink sort of like candy stripe. And Mr. Bennis tells him he's not going outside and walking with his daughter dressed like that. And Jerry's so intimidated that he turns the coat back right side out and ruins his suede coat just because he's so scared of Mr. Bennis. It's great. He's there. George is singing Master of the House from Les Mis, and he hears him singing it, and he's like making fun of him, and he's like, what do you like chorus songs? The episode ends with Mr. Bennis driving in the car singing Master of the House. And he's like singing it in his own car. It's incredible.
Yeah. Everything about that episode is
It's an all-time episode.
Yep.
I like it.
All right. That brings us to number 8. One of the more frequently recurring characters, Jay Peterman.
I know who this is.
Yeah, Jay Peterman is one of the more famous characters. Jerry, do you want to explain Jay Peterman?
So Jay Peterman runs a catalog, and he is an adventurer, and he's been all around the world. He's tried everything.
Including opium.
Yep. He's just so endearing, because he's a screw-up, but somehow he's managed to be successful.
Yeah.
And everything he's involved in is just there's no straight line with his character or what he's doing.
Remember he buys the cake. He has the cake from some queen or king's or duke's wedding.
Yep.
He takes his trips to Burma/Myanmar where he gets back on the Yam Yam. He
bought the JFK golf club.
Yes, I forgot. He allows Elaine to bid for the JFK golf clubs for him. You're right. I never thought of it that way. He is a screw up.
Yeah.
So my favorite Jay Peterman incident of all time is when he authorizes a memoir, and he's going to have Elaine ghostwrite the memoir for him, but all his stories are too boring, so he buys Kramer's stories.
Yes.
And he says he's going to do his tales of erotica, and he tells Elaine, feel free to slip yourself in there. And he's just, him interacting with Kramer is so priceless because they're so different. Kramer is it's as though he has no self-consciousness at all. And Peterman is just such like a pompous ass.
Yeah, Peterman's like weirdly well-traveled and sort of successful, but a screw-up, and wealthy, so he's been around, but he doesn't really get much of anything. He's great. That he's got a lot of great episodes.
I like when Kramer's at a bar and someone's like, Kramer, tell that story. And he starts to, and like, and he can't tell it. He gets so frustrated.
Yeah.
So the guy's name is John O'Hurley, and I can't tell you what else he's from to visualize him because it looks like his entire career he's basically spent doing voices on TV. So he does have a great voice. You might know him best as King Neptune in SpongeBob.
Yes, you would definitely know him as that. Didn't he go to Providence?
Yeah. He's a Providence College grad, I believe.
Which is where Jerry went for the listeners.
How many episodes was he in, Mike?
He was in 20 episodes.
Wow.
That's all?
Yeah.
That's funny. It feels like he's much more present.
It is interesting. The number of episodes is it's not generally more or less than you think. It's just different. Whatever the character is, it's different than you think.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you a sense of how long it takes them to create an impression. Elaine has several bosses over the course of the show. She has Mr. Pitt. She has Mr. Peterman. She has, why the hell can I think of his name right now? The one who kisses her.
Lippman.
Yeah, Mr. Lippman. Like, she has a bunch of bosses, and he's the one who sticks out, but he probably appears in a similar amount of episodes as all three.
Well, just how funny you are on those given episodes. I think it's always funny to think about how, like, like, I'm sure for you, when you're thinking of the Mandelbaums, you're like, oh, they must have been in 6, 7 episodes. And then you find out it's only 2 because their relevance and their weight is more than the number of times they've actually appeared.
Totally.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is it time now for the not top 10?
Hey!
Wow, look at Jerry. I'm glad we've got him
Damn
here.
right.
How would you know?
I don't know. Why don't you help us out here?
And roll the music?
Hey, thanks, Kevin. That was fantastic. Thanks for playing those funky beats.
I love that you were just waiting for that, Jer. That's great.
Yeah, good work.
Thank you.
So the not top 3 is actually, I'm only going to put one character in there because I love all of the characters on this show. I love all of them except for one, and even the cast will tell you that she was not a good character, is Susan. So Susan is George's longtime fiance and almost wife. The actress actually really didn't get along with the cast. And she just never really felt like she fit into the show. She was really flat. She didn't really play as a straight man either. Like, she didn't work off of them very well. She wasn't a very good character. So I wasn't a fan of Susan. I do think she has some funnier moments than people give her credit for. Like when she turns out that she's a lesbian and Kramer seduces her girlfriend is very funny. But I don't know, she wasn't great.
But,
yep.
With her comes her parents.
We're gonna get to them. We're gonna get to them, shortly. So she's not great. She's one that is pretty famous for people thinking she wasn't great. But other than that, it's just hard to think of a character I didn't enjoy. I thought Mike was a little annoying, the guy who says Jerry's a real phony. He gets in the dispute with George over the parking space, and he shows up one other time. He was not great, but for the most part, the characters are just very winning.
Yeah.
Do you have any that kind of jump out at you?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to really think about it. And she had such a big role that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's really the only reason is there's expectations for her. Because other than that, you only need somebody to come in and be funny for 10 minutes one time, and that's it.
It's funny. I'm jumping ahead, and I'm anxious to see the rest of your list because I've got 15 people in my head, and I know there's only 7 spots left. And I am anxious to see who you have. Go ahead.
Kyle, anybody that kind of jumps out at you?
Certainly not. But I'm in a similar position to Jerry in that even someone that doesn't really watch that much of the show, I've got 7 that I've written down already. So unless the list that I have compiled as a non-avid Seinfeld fan is the one you have for your top, I feel like we're gonna have a lot of arguing about who's cracking this.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we'll let you know.
Yeah, there's a long list of bench. Like there's a long bench here.
I bet.
All right, number 7 is probably the most famous supporting character on the show, Newman.
Wow.
Yep. So Newman is very famous for his catchphrase, "Hello, Jerry."
Hello, Jerry.
Yes,
that was good.
Thank you.
That was actually really good. Yeah, that was nicely done.
Yeah.
He's very famous for being Jerry's arch nemesis without really any great explanation for why they hate each other so much, which is very humorous. He is a famously lazy postal worker who does not believe in the sun, neither sun, whatever, rain, nor sleet, nor snow, or whatever the phrase is. He does not believe in that. He does not deliver the mail on days, when there's inclement weather.
To the point where
yes,
Jerry does his route one time and they know that it's not him because all the mail gets delivered.
Yep, and he says nobody's ever cracked the 50% barrier. He really wants to get posted to Hawaii because there's no dogs on the route. The air is so dewy sweet. He's like the ideal bad postal worker. He does hate dogs. He tries to entrap Jerry into a mail fraud investigation. He ends up getting George involved in a mail order pornography sting. But for me, so all of those things are great. I like his antics as a postal worker. The best element of Newman is as a foil to Kramer. I love when the two of them are hatching a plan together. So I put together my list of some of my favorite sort of Kramer-Newman hijinks. I really love when they get the sausage machine, and there's the image, there's the montage of them jumping around with the sausage coming out of the machine. The episode where he has Kramer as his alibi for his parking tickets, and he concocts the story about how Kramer really always wanted to be
a banker.
And I love the episode where he and Kramer have the really extended game of Risk that they're both trying to cheat on.
Yep. Come on, hold on.
Yeah.
You're not the one with the bike.
It's the bike where he's
bike,
King Solomon.
King Solomon.
Yep.
He's dishing out wisdom to help decide who gets the bike.
So Elaine and Kramer both want this same little girl's like huffy bike.
Yeah.
Kramer adjusts Elaine's back, right? She's been having a back problem or her neck.
Yeah, and he says, if I do your neck and fix it, can I have the bike? And she says, of course you can.
Yep. And then when the time comes, she tries to welch, and then Newman basically delivers the lesson from the Bible where King Solomon says he's going to split the bike in half, and Kramer says, I'd rather see Elaine have the bike than the bike be ruined, and he awards the bike to Kramer for his selflessness. Because only the true owner of the bike would rather see it possessed by another than see it ruined. But to me, the all-time greatest Kramer and Newman scam is the bottle deposit scam, where Newman is talking to Kramer. Newman doesn't understand how bottle deposits work. He thinks that they charge you a cent to recycle the bottle. When Kramer tells him you get a cent, he's so stunned by this. He says, but wait a second. Why do you get 5 cents for Michigan? And then they run through this scenario where if they collect enough bottles, we take it to Michigan. Kramer's like, it doesn't work. I've run the models. It doesn't work. They realize that the only way to make this work is to make the delivery from New York to Michigan in a mail truck. And I forget what day it is, but they have all of these empty mail trucks. So they're going to drive out to Michigan with a truck full of bottles to make the bottle deposit. And he's drinking Yoo-Hoos. There's a montage of him drinking like 100 Yoo-Hoos. It is gold. It's gold, Jerry.
It is gold.
Yep.
He's a great character.
Yep.
Love him.
I'm surprised to see him this low. To me, he's
Me too.
He's probably the most famous Seinfeld character that's not one of the main four to me. But it's interesting.
He's definitely the most famous.
Newman!
Alright, so that brings us to number 6.
Wait, how many times was Newman on the show?
45.
Whoa.
So he's by far the most frequent recurring secondary character.
Yeah.
Alright, this brings us to another character who is not on often, but who is extremely memorable, and also extremely memorable for his hilarious interactions with Kramer. Number 5 is the attorney at law, Jackie Chiles.
Wait, are we on 5 or 6?
Did I say 5? I think I said 6, but he appears 5 times.
Oh.
I may have said that incorrectly, but that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
So this is number 6, character who appears 5 times, Jackie Chiles. So Jackie Chiles is a spoof of the very famous attorney Johnny Cochran, who was the lead attorney on O.J. Simpson's defense team. And in the 90s, Johnny Cochran is very famous for his very flamboyant style of defense. He loved to use big words. He loved to trap people into really complicated legal traps. He was like a made-for-TV lawyer, which he was, because he was on TV, and Seinfeld parodies him in hilarious fashion. Jerry's got a notepad out, and I'm concerned about what he's going to write down.
No, I was just thinking of some characters, but I can wait.
Okay, no, no, I thought you were going to make one of your famous drawings. He sometimes does drawings, and they're always vulgar.
No.
So Jackie Chiles, his most famous phrase is outrageous, egregious, preposterous. He loves to make these proclamations. I just listed his 3 cases that he's on with Kramer. So one is a situation in which Kramer is going to what is a thinly veiled Starbucks. It's some new famous Java place in the 90s. And Kramer burns himself because the coffee is too hot.
Yeah.
So Jackie represents him in this litigation, and basically they're negotiating with this company's corporate attorneys, and they say, we're willing to give you a lifetime of free coffee, and Kramer says, we'll take the deal. And Jackie doesn't get a chance to listen to the rest of the offer, which was also going to be in like $1 million. So he's pissed at Kramer. Then there's a situation where Kramer is distracted by a famous woman, Sue Ellen Mishke, who never wears a bra. She's walking down the street with no bra on. She is wearing a bra, but she's only wearing a bra. And Kramer's distracted, gets into a car accident, and wants to sue her. I'm trying to remember what the settlement is. I don't think that they ever disclosed the settlement, but this is the scene where they reenact the "if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit" scene. Because Kramer's being advised by his caddy, and he's listening to the caddy's advice over Jackie Child's advice, and he tells him to have Sue Ellen try on the bra to see if it fits, but she tries it on over her leotard, and it doesn't fit. And this episode ends with Jackie saying,
"If it doesn't fit, you must acquit."
Yep, you gotta wear it right on your skin. It's gotta fit like a glove! And that's how it ends.
Oh my God.
Well, isn't she also the heiress
to the O. Henry,
candy
fortune? Yes, and Elaine's arch nemesis.
Yes. Yep.
But then my favorite one is where Kramer decides he's going to really lean into his smoking, and he smokes like 30 years worth of cigarettes in a week span, and he becomes really ugly. He says he looks like a baseball mitt, and so he's gonna sue Marlboro for taking his good looks, because without him, he's just not Kramer.
Right. And
he ends up, Jackie Childs represents him, and he's trying to get some big settlement. He's ready to take on Big Tobacco, and Kramer settles by becoming the next Marlboro man. And Jackie's riding in a limousine with Kramer, and he looks up and sees Kramer on a horse, doffing his hat to all of New York City.
Jackie Childs is great. What was was it the coffee spill when he put the bomb on? Who told you to put the bomb on?
Who told you to put the bomb? Oh, how did I forget
right?
that? Yeah, that's that's my favorite line.
Yeah,
we say that all the time.
Yep.
Who told you to put the bomb on? Nobody knows what a bomb's gonna do.
You get Tiger Bomb or something that super healed his injuries, and that was going to be a whole nother.
Because he has a doctor. He has a special doctor that he calls for these situations where he can get them to exaggerate what the symptoms are.
And he gets there, and he's all cleared up.
Yeah, Kramer gets some special medicine. Somebody gives him like an herbal balm, and it clears it right up.
Balm or something that he's. Yeah.
You guys say that all the time. Outrageous, egregious. You guys say that all the time.
Preposterous.
Yeah.
Yep. Jackie is an all-timer. Number 5 is a character who we never see his face. Very famously. Jerry, who's number 5?
Number 5 is Steinbrenner.
Yep.
I even knew that one.
Voiced by Larry David.
Referring to himself always in the third person as Big Stein.
Yep.
So, Kyle, can you explain to the audience who George Steinbrenner is in case they don't know? Because this is a real person.
So in real life, George Steinbrenner, the late George Steinbrenner, was the owner. I'm not sure how he amassed his original fortune, but he was the owner.
No, either.
He was in shipping.
Yeah.
He had something to do with shipping.
Okay.
You box him, then you ship him.
Yes,
that's what you do.
Smart ass.
But he very famously owned the Yankees through most of their modern streak of success. Probably. And their family has owned the Yankees for a long time, I know. So, and now his sons run the team. But all through the filming of this show, George Steinbrenner owned the Yankees. And if I'm not mistaken, the reason he's on the show is because George works for the Yankees, right?
Yes. So George works for the Yankees after being unemployed for a very long time. He gets his dream job working in baseball, but he's the assistant to the traveling secretary. So basically he books hotels for the team. But it does allow him to rub elbows with these famous people, including Mr. Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
What's important for the context of the show is this is very much a New York show. It's very strong sense of place in New York. And in the 90s, there probably was no more famous New Yorker than George Steinbrenner. He was always in the news. He's one of those owners who meddled way too much. And when the show began, he was known as a terrible owner. His team sucked. The Mets were the good team. Keith Hernandez actually shows up as himself for a couple episodes, hilariously. The show then sort of pivots to becoming a Yankees show because the Yankees then are really good. So when we'll get to this a little bit later on a character who wishes Mr. Steinbrenner did a better job, that early on in the show, he has to pay for how bad the Yankees were for a little while. But as the show goes on, the team gets better and better. I didn't know this, but the reason that Steinbrenner is played off screen by Larry David is they actually asked the real George Steinbrenner to make an appearance on the show, and he wouldn't. And so sort of as revenge, they had him become this ridiculous caricature played off screen by Larry David.
Billy Martin.
So I actually put a couple. So he famously hired Billy Martin as coach of the Yankees. I think he only hired him twice, but he goes through the list. And Jerry and I must say this once a week.
Billy Martin.
Buck Showalter. Billy Martin. He goes through the list of coaches he's fired because he fired so many. He keeps saying Billy Martin. One of my favorite episodes is where George starts getting him lunch and he becomes addicted to the calzones. And he smells the calzones through the heating system, goes hunting around for the calzones. George is trying to get fired by the Yankees, and so he intentionally, I think it's strawberries, he gets all over the Babe Ruth uniform. Yeah. He wears Babe Ruth's uniform and gets strawberries all over it. And Mr. Steinbrenner decides they've got to kill the past, so he's going to start disrespecting all the memorabilia too, and he puts on Lou Gehrig's uniform, but then gets worried that Lou Gehrig's disease might be contagious. So he's up to all kinds of shenanigans. He reports to George's parents that George has died because George leaves his car at the stadium, and then Kramer takes it to get a car wash, crashes it, drives it back. He thinks that George has heroically tried to drive the car back, but is lost and dead. And so he goes, it's like one of the few times he ever leaves Yankee Stadium, he goes to George's parents' house to tell them that he's dead. He also tries to scalp Yankee tickets.
Yep.
He sends George to Cuba to deal with Fidel Castro so he can get a pipeline to Cuban baseball talent. He trades George to Tyler's Chickens.
Yes.
There's a lot of Steinbrenner.
How many is he in?
He's in 16 episodes.
That's it?
Yeah.
He's another one that I feel like is felt throughout the series pretty heavily, even though he's not making a lot of appearances, and you never see his face.
Never.
Like you said, it's always
they're very committed to the bit.
Yeah, even I know the famous Steinbrenner in Seinfeld.
Big Stein.
Oh God, yeah. Larry David is so perfect for that. All right, number 4. This is a couple, Morty and Helen Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So Morty and Helen Seinfeld appear in about 21 episodes. It's hard to get an exact total because they're initially the father is played by a different character. Blah 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 blah. But there have been about 20 episodes. Their imprint on this show is very large. They loom very large. So I just want to give a couple of my highlights of the parents. A couple for Morty, a couple for Helen. Jerry, I know, is probably the world's biggest Morty Seinfeld fan.
He's awesome.
I'd say, is that fair to say? I think there's probably nobody out there who loves Morty Seinfeld as much as you do.
He's Willie Loman.
He is Willie Loman.
But a funny Willie Loman.
Well, because he had the trench coat thing.
Right.
He sold trench coats with, I forget what the guy's name is, but he's always dropping these names of these people he was in business with back 50 years ago. Yeah. He invented the beltless trench coat.
That's right.
He did. So a couple things. He's got the tip calculator. So Jerry decides to be nice to his parents, so he gets his dad basically a Palm Pilot called a Wizard, and Mr. Seinfeld just uses it to calculate tips, and importantly to calculate incredibly small tips. He's tipping like 2 cents on $2 meals, tipping 5 cents on $30 meals. He's a very stingy tipper. He has the trench coats that he gets into some whole big scam with Kramer. He comes up, he regains all of his youthful swagger when he comes back up from the retirement community in Florida. He comes to New York City to make a big deal with Kramer. What was the deal? They were going to sell the trench coats, weren't they?
Yeah, but didn't he get involved with the bro?
Well, they did have that was actually George's dad.
Yeah, but they got Morty involved.
Did they get? Yeah, they did get Morty involved
because he was in the business.
Yeah, he was in the clothing business back in the day. He's ridiculous. A couple things I love about Mrs. Seinfeld. She said she hates Newman as much as Jerry. Remember, she said, "Hello, Newman. one time, which was great. But her most famous line is, "How can anybody not like you?" She's very bothered by the idea that anybody would not like Jerry. Like, very bothered by this idea. But Jerry's parents are probably most famous for their tandem phone calls. He has a phone call with them every couple episodes where they're both on the phone at the same time. They're big cord phones in their very, very hot, because they don't believe in air conditioning, their very hot house in Florida.
It's funny, too. They're great. If you recall the episode where Jerry finds out that Kramer's been talking to his parents.
Yes.
And keeping him up to date because he's not doing a good job as a son.
Yep.
That kind of hits close to home.
That does hit very close to home for Jerry.
Reason why, but it does.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think Mr. Seinfeld, my favorite storyline for him is when he gets impeached. He's the president of Del Boca Vista, the retirement community where they live. And his arch nemesis, Jack Klompus, leads an effort to impeach him. And then he does the Nixon, right? He does, after he gets impeached, they imitate the Nixon going on to Marine One and does the peace signs. It's great.
It is great. They're 4?
They were number 4. Okay, so that brings us to the honorable mentions, of which there are many. So I'm gonna run through the list quickly and then give you 3 that are legitimate honorable mentions, if that works for you.
Could we do get through the 3 and then do the honorable mentions? Would that be, because I'm just thinking of people that, like on your list that I have in mind.
It might be fun to just see how many Jerry can get. Right? And then, Mike, you can supplement maybe if he doesn't get your whole list.
Like on the honorable mentions?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so I'll do the top 3 and then you do what you think are the honorables and I'll just help?
Yeah, because I'm anxious to hear what you have, but I don't, in my mind, I'm thinking of these people and who you might have missed.
Okay. Alright. Alright, so number 3 is David Puddy. So, David Puddy is Elaine's on-again, off-again boyfriend.
Oh, yes, he's the best.
Yes, he is the best. You know what he would say to that? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. He's played by Patrick Warburton.
Yes, he
who
is.
Voices Joe on Family Guy. He's also in Hertz rental car commercials.
Yes. He's in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's famous for just having a great voice, very distinctive looking dude. But the crazy thing is, this was before he had that brand. This was just some guy who was playing Elaine's boyfriend for an episode or two, and the show realized it had struck gold because he and Elaine have a hilarious chemistry.
Don't you wonder about a character like him where he's got such a strong personality and it's so offbeat? I always wonder, did the creators make him that way?
Yeah.
Or did they bring him in and he just sort of had a way of ad-libbing?
It's gotta be that, right?
Because he's so dry and he's so funny, and I can't imagine that someone conjured that up without having seen him or talked to him, or it's just interesting.
I feel like Jerry Seinfeld must have purchased a car from someone like that, because because the way he's like, he just switches back to, your muffler fee, and all the random stuff that he's ringing
the underbody protection, Simonizing
when he's doing the tally on what the car is going to cost because he's fighting with Elaine and he's going to stick it to Jerry.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right. People might recognize him as, so if they watch Serious or Unfortunate Events, he's the narrator and Lemony Snicket. And probably most famously, he voices Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, I forgot about that. Good point.
Yeah. He's a great character.
He's awesome. I noted a couple of the highlights of Putty. Other than, it's just the funniest thing is just the back and forth with Elaine.
Yeah.
The two of them just can't keep their hands off each other. They're always, breaking up and then they make out and they just they break up because they are not alike at all, and then they can't help it and they get back together. The plane ride where they're breaking up and she's having a conversation with vegetable lasagna and they're both insulting this guy very loudly on the plane is great. But a couple of the things I love is when Elaine discovers he's religious. And he's got a Jesus fish on his car, and she is on his radio, and it's on all the Christian rock stations, and they have a conversation about how he thinks she's going to hell, and she's like, does that bother you? I was like, I'm not the one going to hell. So there's the fact that he's religious. He's a face painter. He goes to the New Jersey Devils game and he paints his face. he has the 8-ball jacket, and he's wearing this, he's wearing this ridiculous leather jacket with an 8-ball on it, and anytime Elaine asks him a question, he points at the back of his shirt and just, ask the 8-ball.
He's great, I think, too, because you expect him to be really dumb.
Yeah.
And in some ways he is.
Oh, yeah.
But one of my favorites is Kramer decides he's wasting too much time.
Yeah.
And so he's not only going to take a shower, but he's going to prepare his food in the shower to save time.
Yep.
And it turns out he needs a garbage disposal. And so he doesn't know who to turn to because the thing is jammed up, and he calls Putty and he's describing it to him. And Putty says, what have you got, a Clarkman? And you sit there and think, how does Putty know what he has? Putty's a dipshit. But somehow he figures it out.
It's awesome. But that, you know what that is helpful with is that brings us to another thing about Putty, which is that he's a germaphobe. Because Putty finds out that Kramer has prepared the salad that he has at dinner in the shower and loses his mind because he is a huge germaphobe. He wears a little chain with a germ on it. He really doesn't like the term grease monkey, which has led to probably our most used line from Seinfeld. We don't like that term.
Yeah.
We don't like that term. He's also big into high-fiving, which Elaine hates. He's high five. He's a parody of like idiotic boyfriends, but I think what you pointed out, you're right. He's funny because he's not actually that idiotic. He's just a kind of a goon. But he's outsmarting them pretty much the whole show. He's definitely outsmarting Elaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a very particular set of skills.
He does.
How many episodes, Mike?
He's in 10, which is way less than you'd think.
Wow. Okay.
He's a very efficient player. 10 episodes, he's outstanding. All right, number 2, an actor who actually just passed very recently. I don't know the actor's name and I don't care. He plays Uncle Leo on the show. Uncle Leo is most famous for his line. Come on, Jerry, what does he always say?
About his nephew?
Well, that too. He says, hello! He says hello all the time. Every time. Hello, Jerry! Hello! He just says hello all the time. Jerry gets caught doing something one time, I forget what, and he just says to Uncle Leo, hello. Uncle Leo...
But
yes.
Jerry's always goes, aw, Uncle Leo. Like, he doesn't want to talk to him, right?
Never, because Uncle Leo only wants to talk about his nephew Jeffrey.
Yeah,
who's
the big job at the Parks Department.
He's a park ranger.
Yep.
He won't stop talking about that.
All he wants to talk about is Jeffrey, yeah.
He only wants to talk about Jeffrey. He's great. He one time picks up a package for Jerry and signs it Uncle Leo. In that same episode, the package explodes. It's actually a gas leak, but Jerry's afraid that he's going to be bombed, so that's why he won't sign for the package. Uncle Leo signs for it as Uncle Leo. There's a gas leak, it explodes. Uncle Leo's eyebrows are burnt off. He then goes to the doctor, and in one of the most hilarious visuals on the show, Elaine pencils some eyebrows on him, and the doctor thinks he's angry because they're sort of angry eyebrows. It's a great sequence, but the best episode of Uncle Leo's entire run on the show, it's just one of the best episodes ever, is he is stealing from this bookstore, Brentano's, and Jerry rats him out, but he only wants to scare Uncle Leo. He asks the security guard just to put a scare into him, but he doesn't realize that Uncle Leo has priors.
Oh, no.
And Uncle Leo has this unspecified crime of passion in his past. And so as a result of Jerry sicking them on Uncle Leo, and Uncle Leo's scam to pretend he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, I'm an old man. I'm confused. It doesn't work. He ends up getting arrested, and he swears his revenge on Jerry. And there's a very famous sequence where Jerry has a nightmare of him as the character, the Gregory Peck / Robert De Niro character in Cape Fear.
Yep.
Where Uncle Leo, they Photoshop Uncle Leo's face onto this really buff, tattooed body and show him doing chin-ups. But as he finishes each chin-up, he says, hello, Jerry. And on his hands, it was hate and fear, right? Is the real tattoo. It's a very famous tattoo where each knuckle is tattooed hate and fear. But instead, one hand says hello and the other hand says Jerry.
He's great.
How many episodes for him?
15.
Wow.
I think your top choice has got to be obvious.
I think
I
I
hope
even know.
Yeah.
Well, who do you guys think it is?
I don't know his last name. I think it's George's dad.
Yeah, it's got to be Frank.
It is Frank and Estelle Costanza.
Yeah.
Jerry, you want to explain the Costanzas?
They're great. They're like an old married couple and all the stereotypical things that you think about them. Frank has a horrible temper.
He sure does.
Estelle has a temper. They spend a lot of the time snipping at each other. They have their kid, George, who they can't get rid of, who somehow won't grow up. They can't get him to grow up quickly enough. And you can't watch them without listening to them just raise their voice at one another, get really frustrated.
For no reason.
For no reason. They'll fight over the stupidest little things, right? They were fighting over how to cook an egg.
Yes. Yeah, they actually do.
How to fry an egg. Like, I think you talked about in a prior episode how important it was to know how to make an egg, right? And it's like, this is a simple thing and they're fighting over it. They're great.
Yeah, they're incredible. Kyle, are you familiar with the Costanzas? Do you have enough background with them?
Yeah, well, at least Frank. Just the way he speaks is so unique and identifiable. Everything he says is instantly a quote just because of the way he says it. But then on top of that, he's got a number of incredible quotes that are memorable in their own right. So when combined, you've got like some real television gold, some real magic.
Yeah.
Especially the Festivus stuff. Cameron quotes Frank Costanza ad nauseum. He's got a lot.
That is true. I've actually noticed that he has a real affinity for Frank Costanza, which is smart because he's one of the funniest characters in television history.
Yeah.
I would love to know how much time he appeared in each episode. I'm thinking of two to me that are, I mean, Estelle is great.
Yep.
But boy, the one where he helps Kramer cook.
It's one of the funniest episodes.
The Jewish singles.
History. Do you want to explain that one?
Kramer's looking to make some money, and he decides that he's going to host an event for Jewish singles. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't know how to cook anything. So Kramer's experimenting with cooking, and it's not going very well. And so
he's screwing up the latkeys and the kugel.
Yep. And he knows that Frank was a cook in the Korean War.
Oh, yeah.
I believe, and a very talented chef. And so he talks Frank into coming out of retirement to cook after, much begging and pleading. Frank agrees to do it. And what ensues is he makes this wonderful dinner at this big event. It's a huge success. All these singles are there, and he has a flashback to
because he sees the guy from the mailroom.
He sees
in
the
his
guy
army
from the mailroom choking. All he's doing is coughing. It's no big deal, and he flashes back to a time during the war when he had taken some old meat, seasoned it up, thought he could make something of it.
With just the right combination of spices.
I don't remember the number, but he calls out that he sent 50 of his own men to the latrines that night. They're stomach sick, but he turns it into this major issue, and so
slow motion, music's playing, guys are throwing up in their hats. I think my favorite part of this flashback is it's supposed to have happened 50 years before, and it's actual Jerry Stiller as an 80-year-old man playing himself. He's supposed to be 30, but it's actually him.
His hair's a little more red or something, right? Yeah, he's great. That one. But that feels like a long episode, and you already referred to it, the Festivus episode. Yep. Oh my gosh.
I mean, my favorite line from my two favorite. One is at Festivus, he tells George's boss, Mr. Kruger, "Hey, Cougar." Instead of Kruger, "Hey, Cougar, my son tells me you're a terrible boss." And then Estelle says, "George, fight your father."
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, Festivus is, it's iconic. Like, everybody knows Festivus. The Korean War episode is incredible. One of the best episodes ever is the contest, and that all starts because Estelle catches George having some alone time at their house, and oh my God! And she ends up getting hurt. George keeps visiting her in the hospital. And as he's visiting her in the hospital, she's complaining about how everything hurts, and she can't believe he's abusing himself the way he has been. All while there's a beautiful nurse sponge bathing a beautiful patient, and George is really distracted, and she's just like, "Georgie, I'm hungry!" But he won't give her any food because he's too busy being distracted by the nurse and the sponge bath. There's the episode when Frank and Estelle, find a van in the woods, and the van is rocking, and some people come a-knocking as they're knocking boots in the van. Yep. There's the episode with the bro, where Frank is actually the model trying on the bro. There's the episode where all the time, he's always insulting Steinbrenner for the bad trades he's made. How did you trade Buhner? And one of my favorite freeze frames in the show's history is when Frank, exactly.
When Elaine's gonna haul off and smack Frank because he got his boy in trouble.
Exactly. George is trying to be a bad boy. Elaine says, something about how he's a bad egg, and he says, "You want a piece of me?" And she says, "I want the whole thing." And the episode ends with the two of them squaring up to punch each other. There's the Serenity Now, Insanity Later. Yep. Then there's the whole Lloyd Braun situation. He starts selling computers with his dad. The mom keeps asking why George can't be more like Lloyd Braun. One of my all-time favorite episodes is when George's parents meet Susan's parents, and they're having Cornish game hen, and Frank is asking about what the difference is between a chicken, a hen, and a rooster. And the Rosses are very wealthy and sophisticated, and he's like, I don't understand. Who's having sex with the chicken? And they're explaining to him that they're all chickens, and it's the hen is having sex with the rooster. Long story short, they bring a loaf of bread to dinner, but the Rosses don't put it out on the table, so Frank steals the loaf back because he's so insulted that they haven't served the loaf. George has an elaborate situation where he tries to get the loaf back in there. I think the Costanzas are the best secondary characters on the show.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't, like I said 1,000 times already, I don't really watch Seinfeld, but I know a number of quotes from him. He's instantly recognizable. I think it's fair to say that he's the greatest of the minor characters on the show. And I would be surprised. I guess we already said that Newman has more appearances than he does, but I would think he's got to be close to the second highest in terms of total appearances.
So I believe the Costanzas they appear in 27 episodes.
Okay.
Which is shocking that they appear in more episodes than the Seinfelds. I have a feeling that late in the show they might have stacked up, because I think later on in the show they realized just what a gem they had on their hands. Yeah. And you get a lot of Frank and Estelle as the show goes on.
Well, the original Seinfeld father changed also somewhere along the line, which may have made him...
Well, it was only the first season, I believe, that it was the other actor, because I tried to watch Seinfeld all the way through a few months back, and I stalled out, but I remember being like really jarred. I was like, ugh! And then it switched, and I was like, okay, that's better. And it wasn't too far in, but it was a weird. That's the weirdest thing when they switch up actors on you like that.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. But luckily, they never did that. Well, they technically did. They filmed one episode with a different Frank Costanza, but then they refilmed it with Jerry Stiller.
Thank God.
Yeah.
All right, you guys want to do some honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's buzz through these because we have done a lot.
Yep.
So, Mr. Kruger.
Yeah.
I mean, Kruger is great. He's George's boss. I think it was one season, maybe, that he was on multiple
Probably
times.
Just one
I don't
season,
remember how many times, but he was almost a recurring character, and he was great. He actually went on after that to be in Malcolm in the Middle. He was the
drill instructor.
The drill instructor for
with the hook.
With the hook.
Yeah.
He's just funny.
Yeah.
He's got a very dry sense of humor. I mean, he doesn't belong in the list, I don't think, but he's
He's
funny.
pretty darn close, because he has some hilarious back and forth with George about going out on a high note. He has the whole skin cancer
Oh, my God.
sequence.
The picture with his family on the beach.
Yep.
The two Hispanic gay guys.
Yes, those guys are great.
They're awesome.
Yep.
They're in a few episodes, and they're always good. And
they're always yelling at us, "Do you not want to wear the ribbon?"
And it's great that they're mean.
Yeah, they're really mean.
Like, they're thugs. Fighting the stereotype. They're two thugs.
Yeah.
You don't expect much.
They're going to beat Kramer up.
Yeah.
Don't they scare Kramer away from the armoire?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
they do. Yes, they do. And there's also an episode that does not air anymore. I forget exactly what people didn't like about it. I think it was offensive to Puerto Rican people, but there's an episode about the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and they figure prominently into it. It's just you don't see it because it's not on TV anymore. But they're also funny in that one.
Okay.
Yes, they're big in that episode.
They pulled that. Mm-hmm. I said Susan's parents. You already sort of mentioned them. They're great.
A couple things about them. The Rusty. They take a handsome cab ride with Kramer where the horse is farting on them.
From the Beefarito.
They have all the interactions with the Costanzas. The dad had a love affair with the famous author John Cheever.
That's right.
And they're reading those old letters that are very, very graphic about their sex life.
Yeah.
They have the whole thing about the foundation where they put George in charge of the Susan Ross Foundation after she dies.
And the mom is just so hard to look at and drunk all the time.
Always drunk.
She's just always drunk. She's great. I like her.
These are not the ones that she's trying to get, or George is trying to get this woman to sign his unemployment, but he's dating her daughter.
Oh my God.
Is that something different?
That's Mrs. Sokol.
Yep.
No, that's Mrs. Sokol, where he's pretending that the daughter is just this beautiful girl so that she'll sign off that he's been trying to find a job.
Yeah. Not Susan.
I love Mrs. Sokol, though. That's actually the Keith Hernandez sequence of episodes. Yep. Because he tells her he can get her to meet Keith Hernandez.
Yeah.
I'm Keith
Starts
Hernandez.
with the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. That's great. Who else do I have here? I don't know her name. The lady with the Jewish rye. She's only in a couple
Mrs.
episodes.
Choate. Yes, so Mrs. Choate is her name.
She's great. I mean, she's in a couple of episodes. The old biddy.
Yep.
Right? She's.
Shut up, you old bag!
Yep.
Jerry steals the loaf from her.
Yep.
But then but she comes back. Do you remember where she comes back?
Well, in court. She comes back at the end to
but
testify.
even before that, she recognizes Jerry because she moved down to Del Boca Vista because of all the crime in New York City.
That's right. That's exactly
right.
And
it's during the impeachment
that it dawns on her.
That it dawns on her who Jerry is, and she tells everybody that they should vote to impeach Morty because their son is a criminal who stole a marble rye from her.
Yep. I also like, his name is escaping me, the anti-dentite.
Yes, Dr. Whatley.
Dr. Tim Whatley.
Played, of course, by Bryan Cranston.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tim Whatley is great.
Well, don't forget, the best thing about him is when he puts his patients under. There's some concern that he's been acting inappropriately in the office while the patients are under. Takes one of the funniest things that ever happens on that show, which was apparently a little improvisation by Bryan Cranston, is he takes a hit off of the laughing gas right before he puts Jerry under just to show what a badass dentist he is. He takes a little hit off laughing gas. Ooh, that's on.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have an adults only dental office where he's putting out Penthouse and Playboy. He dates Elaine for a little bit. Remember, he goes to the Super Bowl with her.
Yep. Oh my God. How about the rabbi? Yep. How are we forgetting the rabbi?
Mm-hmm. Why Elaine?
He's great. Who did you have?
Lloyd Braun, of course, George's childhood rival. Sue Ellen Mischke, the heiress to the O. Henry candy fortune and the Braless Wonder. Mr. Pitt, Elaine's British boss, who one time accidentally masquerades as Hitler during the merger of such and such in Poland Springs. Moulin Springs. Yep. Mickey, Kramer's little person best friend, who's also an actor who gets in trouble for
heightening.
He's heightening.
He put lifts in his shoes.
Yep, because he's a stand-in for a child actor on a soap opera.
Yep. He
and Kramer also play. Remember when they do the medical school?
Oh my God.
He has gonorrhea.
Yep.
Mr. Wilhelm.
Yep.
Who's very funny. Mr. Wilhelm and Mr. Morgan are both George's immediate superiors on the Yankees. They're both very funny. Mr. Wilhelm gets taken in by a cult of cleaning people. Banya.
Yep.
The best, Jerry. The best.
Yep.
Poppy.
Poppy is sloppy.
Poppy's a little sloppy. Yep. He pees on Jerry's couch. There's the manager of Monks.
Yep.
Who's always leaning into their conversations. Bob Sacamano, who's not real, we don't think, but he's always featured prominently in Kramer's stories. His friend Bob Sacamano gets some sort of bad surgery. Oh, my name is Bob!
And FDR.
Yes, Franklin Delano Romanowski is another of Kramer's guys, but he's real.
How about the Bizarro?
Yeah, the Bizarros. They're not recurring, but they're great. Crazy Joe Davola, especially early on, is good. He masquerades as Pagliacci that one time. Babu Bhatt. Babu's great. He opens a restaurant in the neighborhood, but he serves too many different types of cuisine. So Jerry tells him to focus on Pakistani food, and it ends up bankrupting Babu, and he hates Jerry.
Was that before or after he got deported?
He gets deported later because of Jerry.
You're a very bad man, Jerry.
Or because of Elaine. Because Elaine and George don't give Jerry his mail.
Yeah.
Yep. The rabbi, Babs Kramer. Kramer's mom, who is a bathroom attendant. The Drake. The Drake is not actually all that funny of a character, but his off-screen persona of hate the Drake is very amusing. That's what I got. There's some others, but that's like a pretty exhaustive list.
I'm shocked. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Why does the Soup Nazi not count?
I want to say the Soup Nazi only appears in one episode and then the finale.
But didn't Alton Bennis only appear in one episode?
I guess this is true.
Are we talking recurring characters? I imagine a lot of the people...
No, this is secondary. This is secondary characters. You're right. The Soup Nazi deserves a place and probably deserves a very high place.
The Soup Nazi is amongst the most famous Seinfeld characters ever.
Yeah,
everyone knows
absolutely.
the Soup Nazi.
You're right, except the fans. I think it was because I mixed and matched the recurring versus secondary a little bit. But yes, because this is not technically recurring, it's more secondary. He definitely deserves a place and a very high one at that.
Okay. We've mentioned Keith Hernandez a bunch of times, but I love when he's on the show. Who does this guy think he is? I'm Keith Hernandez.
He's amazing. I mean, it's one of the funniest 2-episode streaks ever. And it's before he was a TV personality, too. It's worth noting.
The only other one I know is only because we have a friend who is obsessed with these minor characters, even though I'm pretty sure they only appear in one episode. It's the Van Buren boys.
Yes, I do like the Van B boys.
So
that's a good one.
Those are the only ones that I had, but I think the Soup Nazi probably warrants consideration.
Soup Nazi's probably something like top 5.
I would think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, he's also just hilarious. Not only is he famous and culturally relevant, he's really funny.
You can't even talk about soup without someone bringing it up. Like, if you go to get soup for lunch, the over-under on half times the Soup Nazi gets brought up is, you take that over no matter what.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. It's a character so funny and so notable that it's allowing us all to be very comfortable saying the word Nazi in friendly conversation.
Good point.
My goodness. Like, before that, because people now say, like, a big one is grammar Nazi. People say a lot. I do not say that because outside of this one context, you quickly realize how offensive this construction is.
Yeah.
It's a really dark and offensive thing. It's just that the humor of this situation is so overwhelming that it allows us to overcome this great stigma about invoking this group.
Yeah, it diffuses the horrible, horrible connotation of that term somehow.
Which is, I mean, that is the genius, the absolute genius of Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Like, that is talent.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not going to have a ton of input on how this is reordered or rearranged. I'm sure, Jerry, you have thoughts?
I'm on board with it. You know, it's funny. They're so hard to distinguish. And you can just sit here. I mean, we could talk for hours about it. And you mentioned, you know, a guy that's in one episode is terrific. And they have their place. And, you know, how do you want to rank them? Do you want to rank them by cultural reference? If so, the Soup Nazi has to be number one. He's... Everybody knows that. They might not know Frank and Estelle, but they know him. So no, I don't have any qualms with the list. I think it's could be, you could replace these with 5 people.
That's the crazy thing.
So great is that, you know, it depends on which show you're talking about, and all great.
Yeah. From my perspective, it's like, I lean more towards the characters that have relevance to people that aren't huge fans of the show. So like my top 3 would look like Frank, and then the Soup Nazi, and then Newman probably, because those are the 3 characters that and then probably like Peterman, because like those characters recur a lot, and I know who they are, even though I'm not an avid fan. But I don't think that's necessarily how it should be ordered. It's just something to consider. But
it's definitely it carries some weight. I think it's important. Like I actually even considered not ranking Newman, but because Newman's not my favorite character. I did after thinking about it, realize that he has some pretty hilarious stuff, but he's just so important to the show that you couldn't leave him off.
Right.
In favor of a Mr. Bennis, who's so funny, and to big fans of the show, iconic, but not to, nobody knows Mr. Bennis other than diehard fans.
The thing about Newman to me that's interesting is I don't think he's that funny.
He is. You have to think about it. That was my initial reaction, but then I started thinking about his storylines.
But he's more, to me, he's more physical humor.
Yeah.
Physical comedy. Like, I picture him running down the road with his short little legs, and he's funny.
Yeah.
He's funny in that way. Like him a lot. I don't, but I could see how you could leave him off the list.
But I think that's an important bit of perspective of the diehard fan versus the casual fan or non-fan, is the idea that we are such big fans that we have such a embarrassment of riches that we could rank Newman off the list is crazy.
But you could do it.
But you could, but only if you're a crazy, crazy fan.
Yep. Guilty.
So I think basically we should drop the Soup Nazi in at 4 above Morty and Helen.
Okay.
And then just slide back. That I would be comfortable with that.
I'm leaving this up to you guys. I'm happy with that move, and I'm comfortable with the rest of it if you are.
Jerry, are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Booyah.
So that drops the Mandelbaums off the list, which just seems like a damn shame, but I'm willing to do it.
What are you
They're
going to
11
do?
with an asterisk.
They are 11 with an asterisk. All right, Kyle, it feels like we may have a list.
It does feel that way.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in recapping said list for our wonderful viewership, our listenership?
Jerry, would you like to do us the honors?
I would love to, but I can't see it.
You can see it. We'll zoom. Your old eyes will see.
Wow. All right. So, number 10 is we have Steinbrenner.
Nope.
Yep.
What are you doing? Number 10.
Oh, I thought, what's that list?
Ignore that.
Oh, I see.
Read it
Number
from the 10.
10 is Mr. Bennis. Number 9 is Jay Peterman. Number 8 is Newman. Number 7 is Jackie Childs, the attorney. Number 6 is Steinbrenner. 5 is Morty and Helen. Seinfeld, Jerry's mom and dad. The Soup Nazi is 4. David Putty, yeah, that's right, is number 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Uncle Leo is 2.
Hello!
Hello, Jerry. Frank and Estelle Costanza are number 1. And there you go.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
You know,
and you're going to hear about it.
You are going to hear about it. That's such a great concept. Maybe some future cast would be a Festivus, because I had a lot of problems with all you people. I'd be happy to create a Festivus list of crap that bugs me.
I think that'd be great.
We could celebrate Festivus.
I'd also enjoy visiting you guys to celebrate Festivus sometime.
The feats of strength.
Yeah. Do you have the poll? We'll have to get that out of the attic.
We'll have to find the poll.
When he says, I'm sorry. And then I started to rain down blows
upon him.
For George Wants a Doll.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's funny. Yep.
Oh
my gosh.
Boy. All right, K-Dog. Do you want to talk about some stuff?
Well, I would just like to point out that the incomparable Kevin MacLeod put together our theme music and the not top 3 music, which was cued today by our very own Jerry. I would also like to mention that our artwork was created by Erin Sant. And again, if you wanted to see more of her stuff, you could do so at Sant Design on Instagram.
I think that's true. And if you were looking for our stuff on the old internets, you could check out our Twitter at Top10KM, our Instagram, Top10KM, our Facebook group, Top10 * with Kyle and Mike.
Yep.
You could probably send us an email if you wanted, if you had any suggestions, if you wanted to be on the pod yourself.
We read the email.
We do read the email. We respond.
We have no
We always
unread
respond.
emails.
None. 0. Well, we probably got 1 or 2 scam emails from like somebody else tried to log into our account. But other than that, we have no unreads. That's top10km at gmail.com. All of these, the 10 is spelled out TEN. And if you wanted to check us out on a different platform for podcasts, check us out at the Apple Podcast app, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, wherever the hell you get your podcasts.
That's it. And a huge thank you to Jerry.
And a huge thank you to Jerry. We needed you for this one.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. It was a real pleasure. To have the third seat is a real honor.
Yes. Well, you will be graduating to the second or first seat very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Get comfy. We'll have you back soon.
Sounds good.
You won't have to wait a year this time.
No, it won't be a year again.
Sounds great.
All right.
Good night, buddy.
See you,
Adios.
amigos.
Stop tapping your feet. You're doing something with your feet down there.
Sorry, bro.
Take your Crocs off or something.
Yep.